Hey everyone, thanks for coming to my channel again and watching this pen build. This one is going to be SweetGum and Pearl. This is going to be a slim style twist pen, and it's going to be this resin pen blank that I got from Cocoon Blanks. They're out of Arizona, and it is embedded or cast with SweetGum pods. And the final result's pretty amazing on this one, and so I'm just gonna maybe give some pointers on what I'm doing. This first part of it is just kind of turning the pen down. It's not anything special. I do this differently all the time, so I don't want to say that I'm doing this based on this sort of method or technique or anything like that. You might see in the next video that I do a completely different style on turning the pen down to the shape. It's really kind of turned into everything after turning is mostly what I am working on. So you'll see that turning the pen down to shape is usually only a portion of these videos. It's the rest of it is carving it out, engraving it, figuring out the design and how to inlay it and what colors to use and that kind of stuff. So really what that, it just makes it to where I'm basically practicing different techniques on turning these pens down. And I don't particularly like turning resin or acrylic or any of these materials on the lathe. They're super messy, and I'm not entirely super clean myself, so their messiness combined with my messiness equals a lot of mess that gets in the way. So I started sanding a little earlier than I normally do, but with these sorts of blanks, they can start having these little chips and tear outs once you get to these smaller sizes. It's not so bad when it has some sort of material cast in it. So when you get hybrid blanks and blanks that have pine cones or sweet gum and other stuff cast on them, you don't get near as bad of chipping toward the end. But either way, I didn't want to risk my tools maybe not being sharp enough, or me making a mistake and gouging it or anything like that. So I'd rather waste a little extra sandpaper and make sure I don't ruin the pen blank by going too aggressive and trying to get it too small. So you're seeing that I'm sanding this down to the rest of the size. It also really helps me get the uniform shape that I'm looking for without gouging it. One thing with resin, if you've ever worked with it, is that sometimes it cuts like butter, and when it's cutting like butter, if you don't have very good control of your tool, it's gonna put a groove in there very smoothly and very quickly. And when you're down around the size that we are right here, you can do that one time, and then you won't be able to recover the shape of the pen. It'll just have this little groove in it, and you'll have to either work with that or accept that you just ruined it. So you'll see that I'm cross sanding here. It's incredibly important to cross sand between what you're doing. And I'm about to start punching holes in this thing and inlaying it. So normally I try to get the sanding up pretty smooth before I start doing that, so that if I trap any of the finished product into the inlay, I don't trap in scoring marks or deep sanding marks or anything like that into it. So I get it pretty sanded. I also leave the pen at about 95% of the shape that I want, because I'm gonna lose more material after I do the inlay and the cleanup and refining of the inlay. That whole process will end up taking too much material. If you get your pin all the way to the right shape and then you do not leave yourself some room to fix it, then you can end up sanding it too far just in trying to finish the inlay process. So you'll see that this one's turning out to be beautiful. I really love the design and the way that SweetGum pods look when you turn them. They have this really chaotic look, and I think it's really cool. There was a small piece that came out there, but I'm just gonna use some Opal to fill that in whenever I'm doing the rest of the inlay. So here I'm starting to do the inlay. For almost everything I do, I just use a 1 horsepower Kawasaki rotary tool with a wood carving bit in it or a diamond bit. When I do it on these SweetGum pods, I try to think of some sort of design that would accentuate it without taking away from the cool features of the SweetGum. So like here, I didn't want to use any lines because there's no other lines in this pin, so I didn't want to just cut a line all the way through and inlay that like I normally do. I wanted to do something with like dots and pores and pods and maybe some sort of theme like that. So here I decided to try to go with a sort of starburst kind of theme, like a little bit of maybe drops bursting out of the SweetGum pod. So one of the other processes I do here, you'll see here in just a second, is I flood this with denatured alcohol quite a bit when I'm doing my inlay. And I have some viewers and some customers that do work, and they're in California. I guess you can't get denatured alcohol out there. That sucks. I can get it, and I'm gonna use it because I like it, so that's cool. So you'll see the color I'm using here is a Starry Night. That's what color it is. It's like it's a blue that's got a little bit of purple in it, but it reflects colors from pink, purple, blue, and red. And it turned out to be a perfect color for this pen. And this is another part of this is the technique that I'm inlaying with this particular pen is not the same technique that I do with other pens. It really depends on what I'm trying to do, how big the design is, what sort of stones I'm trying to use in here. This one is almost all this very fine 0.75 millimeter grain crushed opal. And I've got a couple 1.5 millimeter grain that I'm placing of a peacock color. Other people will call this color emerald or dark emerald or black emerald, but the color's name is actually peacock, so I call it by its actual name. And I put that in there to just give these really sharp green bursts of light that come out alongside the purples and blues, and it was just an idea, and it ended up turning out really pretty at the end. So you'll see these dots. I kind of do these curves with the dots as the size of them graduates down as we go through. And you'll also notice I'm doing all the inlay on the lathe here. Normally I take it off and I have another station right next to this that I do the inlaying and the carving and all that kind of stuff. But there's a few new techniques with the inlay process that I have been working on, and I'm getting some pretty good results on it. I don't really want to put a lot of information into it here because the process can change. This is a technique that I've been working on for a little over a year now, and it's not just standard inlay. It's kind of the process of getting the inlay on these sorts of projects without having some of the major issues that come up, such as air and voids and problems with having a stable product at the end of it and the finishing process of everything. So It's definitely a nuanced technique, and it can end up being a very expensive mistake, because using crushed opal is fairly expensive even in its raw form without being part of a product. And if you're working on a project that requires, 1 or 2 or 3 grams of crushed opal, and then you ruin it to where it's, you either break the blank or you make it to where it's just, it looks so bad that you'd have a hard time selling it or justify, selling it. It can get fairly expensive to do that. So it's kind of got a little bit of a barrier. If someone is wanting to get into learning how to do this, you can always shoot me a message. I'm fine with doing this kind of stuff. I'd be up for doing like live inlay processes and kind of answer questions that way too. But my first recommendation is, if you're going to try it, don't try it with opal. Learn how to do this with crushed stone that's a fair bit cheaper, such as like natural stones, different sorts of agates, jaspers, obsidian, tourmaline, amethyst. You can try all these different stones. They're all significantly cheaper than opal. So, if you can learn on those, and you can still make really pretty and cool products with those stones that people would love to have. There's a lot of people that would love an amethyst inlaid pen that you made. So it's really cool. It's worth the practice, because it completely changes the dynamic of what you're able to do, what you're able to bring to life out of your own head on what a pen could look like. It seems to have an endless potential, and I do intend to move this to other projects once I get this process down on the pens. But you'll see here I'm kind of re-drilling some of them out. They didn't all stabilize in there the right way, so I drilled those out. I'm going to re-inlay them here, basically starting over on those. So these corrections are what can end up ruining your pen if you do them too much. If you get too meticulous and too perfectionist on it, you can end up just ruining your pen because you're trying to make it too perfect. So I skipped part of the finishing process there. That last part was the end of it. So what I had done is I decided to let all that sit there and continue curing inside of those inlay voids. So sometimes the super glue or the CA will it won't cure down in the pockets, and so you'll cure over on top of it, but then when you go to finish and sand the top, you'll break that surface, and then you'll blow everything out that's not glued in. So when you're finally done with everything, it's good to give it a while to sit and cure all the way through. This polishing process is a standard sanding all the way to through like 12 or 15,000 grit wet sanding on the CA finish. I did a light CA finish that I forgot to record here. So I sand all the way up through there, and then I use a finishing compound. Here is, I'm just selecting the pen kit that I want and all the different tools that I use to prep it and make sure that this actually turns out being good and everything's even. This is how I square the bottoms at the very end. I don't have any issues doing it this way. You do have to be very careful in how you feel for it being upright and level. Otherwise, you'll get gaps and stuff when you assemble the pen. So that's what I'm doing here. And you're going to see I'm putting this, this is a beautiful blank, and I'm putting it on a slim style pen. I get more complaints than I would have guessed about using such nice blanks and effort on what people consider to be the low end side of pens. And the reality is that they're the low end side of pins because they're just the most recognizable, and they're very affordable on the kits, even when you get high quality ones. So I look at this like having a very high quality simple kit. It makes the most recognizable type of pin for somebody that is not a pin collector. So pin collectors, I do obviously want them to buy my pins too, but I don't have any problem selling these pins to people that don't collect pins, simply because they're a recognizable and functional piece that they're able to see right away. They're able to use it, and it's the most beautiful pin they've ever seen in their life. So it's not a very hard sell. I really enjoy having something like this that I step a value up by 3 or 4 fold by putting the extra effort into engraving it and inlaying it the way that I do. So it's still a very high quality piece. All the pieces and the parts and the mechanisms are all very high quality. The cartridges are high quality. It's just on what is considered the lower end form of a pen, but I don't buy into that. I make these and I think they're beautiful. This is a finished product, and you'll see the fire coming out of those opal holes. This thing turned out gorgeous, and I just thank you all for watching. I hope some of this was helpful, and keep watching my videos. I'll try to include more as I develop this technique and as I expand it into other things. So thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy it. Shoot me messages if you have any questions. Throw them in the comments. I'll take a look at them. Thank you for watching, and keep on toiling, guys. Thank you. Bye.